The TT motorcycle races have given the Isle of Man an international reputation as the road racing capital of the world, a reputation that has been recently enhanced by the international circulation of the daily TV coverage of the events. Now, we're a week away from the start of the 2018 TT Festival, and the influx of enthusiasts from all over the world is underway. All of the various and numerous essential support organisations like Manx Radio, the cafes, the bars, restaurants, pubs, entertainment venues, accommodation and so on are all making their final arrangements. And although the TT Fortnight is a highly commercial period for the Isle of Man economy, the racing itself and all that goes with it would not be possible without the vast army of unpaid volunteers such as the Isle of Man Scouting Association, the St John's Ambulance, Red Cross, Isle of Man Civil Defence and Hog Motorsport, to mention just a few of the many. One vital organisation is the Isle of Man TT Marshals Association. Without its volunteers there would be no racing. Most people have heard of them, but it's surprising how few know the extent of their activities and how essential they are to the racing. Well, to rectify this today and to set the scene for the next few weeks, we welcome our studio guest, the chairman of the Isle of Man IOMTTMA, Robert Craine. Robert, thank you for giving up your time this morning and joining us.
No problem, Roger. Good afternoon.
Yeah, middle of a busy week, I gather. Now,
very busy, yes. It's kicked off last week and things, preparing stuff, ready to go out to start handing out the packs for the Marshals before the first practice next Saturday.
Right, so we'll come maybe during the course of our chat to what these packs are and what they entail and what everybody gets. But let's go to the association itself. How long have you been chairman of it?
3 years now. Yeah, it's a 3-year election period. I'm up for re-election in October at our AGM.
Right, well, we also come maybe to the structure of it in a moment, because it did used to be a sort of loose voluntary organisation, didn't it? Now it's a company.
Yes, it was. I mean, I wasn't involved with it before. I was a marshal, but I wasn't actually on the board or anything. I don't really know how it all used to work. I know it was all organised by the police in the original days, and people were signed on and sworn in as constables and things. Well, that sort of changed a bit, but yeah, we've still got the same powers, and we've still got that sort of responsibilities that they give us.
Right. Well, that's another thing we should come to before we finish today.
Yes.
But let's go back to the start. So it was established when, in the 1960s?
62 was the first year that it was set up, and we've got the books actually up in the safe with the original people signed on and their original names. Some of them, I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but a lot of them were police or advocates and people of good standing. Yeah. It's a very like a big club.
So it was a voluntary service even then, was it?
Yes.
Right. So what was it set up to do, though? I see that it was sort of a talk about some sort of relationship between riders and teams and marshals, but it doesn't specify what it was really hoping to do with that relationship.
No, I don't think that. In the early days when practices were going on open roads and things like that, when that stopped and the marshals were very few and far between around the course. But I think they were there really primarily to help the riders if there was an incident out on the course. Mm-hmm. But there were so few of them, few marshals, that is.
So in 2004, you said you started it as a
2004.
Company. We came together as a company. I presume that must have been to a certain degree to formalise a lot of things, because trouble with organisations like this where there's all sorts of potential liabilities, of course, it leaves the individuals exposed as well, doesn't
Exactly, and that's what it was. The people at the time, I think, were concerned about their livelihoods and their homes. And that, and of course, in 2004, the 2000s was when the Americans became more litigious than ever before, and I suppose that started to come to the UK and the British Isles. So I think that was partly why they did it, to make sure that they were protected.
Now, is it a limited company as a trading company, or limited by guarantee?
No, it's limited by no share deal, no share options. It's just limited by guarantee.
Guarantee, yeah. Who's the guarantors then?
There aren't any, funny enough. There's three people that signed up, but because we don't actually have any liabilities as such, we don't, we own certain things, but we don't actually have any liabilities. There aren't actually any guarantors. It was a subject that came up only a few months ago.
Now, how is it funded? Because you've got quite an operation there.
Yeah. Well, we used to have quite a bit of trouble collecting money, because we'd try selling shirts and, of course, or caps and things, and that was quite difficult to do when you were up to your eyes trying to sign people on. So we did come up with a different agreement with the shop on the front. But now we actually get the money from the government. The government pay us a certain amount of money. We tell them what we need it for. They scrutinise it, come back to us and agree it, or we discuss it. And so there's things like training, and training's the biggest budget. But then there's things like the printing and the pack stuff that we're going to talk about. Just everything like that we have to actually consider.
So you don't really enter into a fundraising activities?
We don't now, no. We used to, but people still offer us donations and things, but we try to give them to pass them on to charities, so that we don't have to worry about accounting for them.
Yeah, but so each year, in fact, although you're not a government department, you have to go through a sort of pitching process like some of the departments do.
Sort of, yes, but I mean they know what we're after, and it very rarely changes. So it's roughly the same same things every year. Some things change. We used to order certain things in which are now done by the government department, so that saves us doing them. So that means they don't have to give us as much money as they used to, and that works us fine. We're not worried about it. We've got a good relationship with the DFE, or the DED as it was when we first put the budget in. But the DFE, we work very closely with them, and they understand what we need.
Now the board, it's a company, but it's a voluntary board, I understand.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. All the directors are volunteers, the same as marshals, and nearly all of them are all of them are marshals.
You're the chairman as a working director, but you're still unpaid too. But you do a lot of work involved.
Yes, I know. Tell me about it. Yeah. Yes. No, but there's 7 directors in total, and 3 officers, and 4 directors. So that's the way that we've structured the company.
How are they appointed?
At the AGM. Yeah, they're elected.
Yes, and when you have an AGM, is there a public turnout for that? Or
there is sometimes. I mean, we've had some years you get 10 people there, other years you get 60 people there. So it's not a massive thing. I'd be honest with you, I don't really think a lot of people at Marshall really care whether we're a company or whether we're a charity. Or that's the big complaint. A lot of confusion, not complaint. People often say that we're a charity. Well, we're not a charity, because I think they have to do a lot more accounting than.
How long have you been in this headquarters of the Grandstand?
They moved in there in 2007 into that little office there. Before that, it was in one of the porter cabins and run from Roger Hurst's house out in Crosby. So
it's always been a shoestring job, isn't it?
It was at the time of that as well. I mean, I think they used to get a little bit of money from the government, but it was mainly for the sale of shirts and things. But then we didn't have to have tabards. We didn't have to have all those sort of things. And there was things like the flagman's coats were all sponsored, if you like, by different companies on the island.
So we deal with the TT, that's self-explanatory, but it's in your title or the name of your organisation. What else do you do?
Well, the only other thing we're responsible for is marshalling on the TT course, on the mountain course. So we deal with the TT and the Manx Grand Prix and the Classic TT. That's the only thing we deal with. We don't deal with the
Southern
other...
100 or anything like that?
No, we're nothing to do with the Southern 100 or the Derby races and that. I mean, some of our marshals go out to help them there, but we just run the organisation for the TT and for the Festival of Motorcycling.
So would find the training that you've given them useful for those too.
Well, some of them do, and of course training is actually a big issue at the moment and things, but we are changing the training slightly. I think the training needs to reflect more of what we need to do and on the TT course rather than on any short circuit, because people use them from Ireland and from across in the UK.
Well, let's have a look, to go back just to say, what does a TT marshal do?
Well, hopefully nothing. Hopefully they can stand there and watch the bikes without a problem. But basically they're there to report things like if there's a problem with a bike, if they spot a problem, or if there's if there is an incident, then they're there to help recover the bike and recover the rider. They now are increasingly having to put out more barriers and things like that and close roads off because that's been handed over to the marshals over the last few years. So basically they're there.
From whom?
Well, it used to be done by different people. I think it used to be done by the DTL, some of it. Then that became the DOI. So some of those used to do the work. And of course some places never used to have barriers, or they just had a quick rope. So going back to the old days when the deputy used to just go in a car, putting a rope up at each place and then getting to the end and phoning through to say this section's closed. Now it's a lot more complicated.
It didn't stop anybody from ducking under the rope.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it still doesn't. It doesn't. Putting barriers up doesn't stop people climbing over them. So.
Do they do that?
Not very rarely. they'll walk round them or they'll climb them. They'll find a way onto the course if they want to.
What I really meant was, do they go where they shouldn't go?
We do get some, yeah, that's why we have to watch it. I mean, there was announcements last year about spectators in places they're not allowed to be, and the marshals try to move them on, and sometimes they move when you talk to them, and then they go back as soon as you turn your back on them. So in the end, we just call race control, and if necessary, Gary will call, stop the practice. And last year he was doing quite a lot of announcements, well, not quite a lot. He did a few about people at certain places. If they don't behave, then the racing won't continue.
Well, perhaps we should talk about that in a minute, because there's the duties of marshals as well. I've been doing a bit of reading about this lately, because it's, as I said, it's one of those subjects which I've known the marshals exist for years, but I've never really looked into what they do, and I think that probably applies to a lot of people.
I think it probably does. Yeah, I think it's quite a shock.
How many? Looking at two ways, how many members will you need? How many people will you need on the ground for this year's races?
The minimum number that we need is 536. Yeah, that's spread across the 12 sectors. There's 12 sectors around the island, and they're each run by a sector marshal who agrees on what the minimum would be for each corner or each position, and that's the minimum we will run with. If we haven't got the minimum, we wouldn't be able to actually start the race. That's the idea behind it.
So what happens if you haven't got the minimum?
Well, it wouldn't.
Where do you get them from?
Well, if we haven't got them, we haven't got them. That's simple as that. There is someone once asked us on one of the programmes here, what's Plan B? And the chairman at the time said there is no Plan B, because there isn't. We've had.
Has it happened?
Yeah, we've had initial Saturdays cancelled because of lack of marshals. We've also had them cancelled because of bad weather. But we have had said, well, we just haven't got them, or we will run something like an untimed sighting lap for the newcomers, with agreement with the sector marshals in the areas where they haven't got the minimum.
So you don't get any help from the police there, then?
We used to, but the police moved back from the course a few years ago now. We're re-establishing a good relationship with the police now. I've been to see the chief constable a number of times, and we both understand each other's position. Gary doesn't have enough people to put around the course when there's other work to do, but they will support us if we call for them, which is basically what we tell the marshals. If there's an issue that you don't feel comfortable with, then call control. The police in control will then dispatch officers to actually deal with the issue. Right.
Well, the numbers, you talked about 530 people. Well, obviously to get 530 people, you've got to have an awful lot more people signed up for you, haven't you? What sort of number? You must have a register of potentials.
Well, at the moment, as I left the office, we've got 1,300 signed on at the moment for the whole 2 weeks. But some of those will only come for race week. Some of them will only be here for practice week. So they distributed between the whole 10 days or 14 days of racing. But in total, we've got just over 720 marshals on our database active, which we send out forms asking them if they're going to sign on, and then we wait and see which ones can make it.
Well, you've got all those various people. First of all, but they're not all Manx, obviously.
No, we've done some work. I did some work this morning, looking at the numbers, and actually I was quite surprised because it's under a quarter now on the Isle of Man, Manx based, right, which we had thought was a bit higher than that. 60+% now are from the UK, and 12% are from around the rest of the world, from loads of different countries, from European countries through to Australia and
they come that far?
America. Yes, we've got people that come. We've got some people that come back regularly from America, come every year. Not many, but there are some.
What brings them back?
I think it's the fact that the racings are just brilliant. It's a fantastic atmosphere. The whole island's alive. The marshals. Yes, you can get a bit tired towards the end of the week, but you're still there because of the buzz of the racing and what you're trying to do.
But all of these people, they come all this way, Australia or the UK or whatever it is, at their own expense.
Oh yes, yeah.
And their accommodation's their own expense,
yep,
and everything else is their own expense, and the labour's for free.
Well, if they're marshals, yes, that's right. We give them a little gift in the packs and things like that, but they're tiny little gifts. Yeah. Pen and pencil and pen and paper.
That's not going to pay for the air ticket from Australia.
No, it isn't. No. But they and I think some people. I think as you on your introduction, you said about the coverage on TV. I think that helps because people now want to come here and I think some people have got it on their bucket list of things to do. Excuse me. But so that's why they want to come and see it once
what
they
I'm
see it.
fascinated with, and I do know one or two people who come to the island to do this, and they come all this way, as we said, at their own expense, and they stand at one particular corner, whether it's the bottom of Bray Hill or somewhere else, for most of the races, and they don't see much else. They don't exactly follow the races or go and do anything else.
No,
really.
this is one of the things we have. It's great having the people come over, but as I've actually said, we have marshals, and we prefer marshals if they would stay in one place, because that means they get to know the area, they get to know where the right lines are for the bikes, and they can spot things before they happen. But actually, it's unreasonable to expect somebody who's come from the other side of the world to go to one place. So they go to the sector, they go around the whole sectors, and when they fill out their forms, either online or in the paper, on the paper forms, they will say, I want to go to this place this day, this place another day. So they get round to see all the places that they've maybe seen on TV.
Which for you, I would imagine that's quite an organisational task.
It's a mammoth
Keep
task.
shuffling people around.
Yeah, the sector marshals do a great job. You know, they're constantly making rotas up so we can see what numbers are in and where we're short, so that then we can liaise with the people in the tower to get people into the right places. Hopefully before roads close, but if not, we've got the ability to move people around after roads have closed to actually fill any little gaps. But for the last couple of years, we've been doing it. We've got better at it, and we've been dealing a lot more closely with the people in the hat tower and moving the cars around. So,
Yeah, right. Well, it's all these people coming. Are they predominantly men, or do women take part? Or
No.
what?
It's a very mixed bag now. Very mixed. I don't have a breakdown of what the actual would be, or even of the ages, but we do have quite a few elderly marshals that have been doing it for a very long time, and while we still appreciate everything they can do because they've got a lot of experience and they may know what's likely to happen in certain places, but of course things move on, bikes get faster, road surfaces get better, tyres get better, and I think so we have to sort of temper them and say, well, that's how it used to be. But now we have to move back. But we really are lacking, as I said, only a quarter now from the island, and we don't seem to be able to attract any really young people. We've got young people.
I was going to ask you about that. You've talked about that. We talked about men or women, but the age profile. Then you say it's still predominantly middle-aged to elderly.
It's definitely, yeah. I mean, it's basically people that maybe have finished work. So a lot of people are in their 50s. I think the average age when we looked at it last year was somewhere around about the late 40s, very early 50s is the average age of a marshal. So
what age do you have to be to become a marshal?
16 is the minimum, but you need parental consent for that.
To when? To 18?
To 18, yeah. And there is no upper limit. There was one year, but you can have a very active 70-year-old and a very inactive 20-year-old. So.
Yes, but as far as the young people are concerned, what is the inhibiting factor? Why do you think they don't?
We don't know. I mean, we've been looking at this now for a year or so. We've actually been engaging with the DFE, looking at things like that, trying to use social media to attract it. But the social media side tends to, in my opinion, preach to the converted a lot of the time. So we need to go out there and we need to sort of make ourselves present.
But that's going to be easy enough in the Isle of Man to get young people. Not too easy if you're going to somewhere like Birmingham.
No, exactly. No, I mean, this is it. And even motorcycle press, there's motorcycling's changed anyway. I mean, it's so expensive for young people now to get on a motorbike and buy insurance and buy leathers and things. So maybe that's part of the reason they're not interested in bikes as such. But on the island, there would be nice if it was families like it used to be.
Well, if you sign up to be a marshal, do you have to do all the sessions?
No, you do whatever sessions you want. You can put down on the form which days you're available. We have the practices, we have the races, and then we have the emergency days in between the races in case the weather's bad. So no, you can choose which days you want to go, and at the moment, you can choose where you want to go. But that is something I think we need to start addressing over the next year or so, because we do have a lot of people in certain places and very few in others.
Well, for the practices and then the races, so how much time are you committing yourself to for each session?
Well, it depends on the session, doesn't it? The first race day, I think, is 12 o'clock, I think. So you're going to be out there for 10:30, 11 o'clock, and you could be there for most of the day until 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
So there is quite a lot. I mean, practice evenings start at 6, and finish around about 9. So you've got 3, I mean, for me and from the deputies, then they're out a little bit earlier setting things up. So it could be 4.5 hours a night, 5 hours. And if you do get a delay or whatever, then you can be out on course at 8 o'clock and not get home till 8 o'clock.
You take your sandwiches.
You do, and weather clothes and sun cream and everything else. Because,
Of course, it raises an obvious question, isn't it? If you're somewhere out like that all the time and you want to go to the loo, what do you do?
Well, there are a lot of toilets around there. There's a lot of portaloos or whatever they're called, placed around there. Especially now, we've done more of those over the years.
Now, as far as the people getting them on the course, people going out, recruiting new people, I would guess that the new people, of course, may come with enthusiasm, with little knowledge. How do you handle that?
Well, this is what we do is we have a classification of marshal called novice marshal. So when you first sign up, we know you're new. We know that you've not been out there before. You may have seen it on TV and you may have friends, but we always make sure that they're with somebody that knows what they're doing. But actually trying to get them involved in things and making sure that they're safe and that they don't do anything if an incident does happen that jeopardises them. But we end up doing putting people like that, so spreading them around. The problem comes there when you might have 6 people all joining up together who want to stay together, because it's quite difficult controlling 6 brand new people on a one small corner or something. But overall we spread them out and then we just tick them off. We sort of mark their attendances, and when they've done 10 sessions we assume that they know roughly what they're doing. Some of them are very good early on, but average it's 10 sessions.
I would imagine it must be like anything else. You're not testing people and giving them an exam before the job, so you must get quite a mixed bag at times.
You do, yes, exactly, and you never know how people are going to respond. We offer a training course as well, which we're in the process of changing, as I said, to make it much more related to the TT course. But also we prefer not to let people go on that training course until they've been out on the roadside, because we have had people that have stood by the roadside, seen a bike go past them at 180 miles an hour and take the tabard off and walk away and say, I'm not standing here. And so there's no point in spending training time if they're not going to be there. So we need to know that they are going to be. So some of them do
get scared then?
I think anybody does. It's even people that have been there, for a while. You see the bikes go by. It's a fantastic feeling when the first bike goes by. You've done your job and you've got the marshals out there ready for it to run.
Yeah. But experience in working with others is fine. But of course, that means that the people you have to send them out with have to have some experience as well, and have to be able to pass that experiences on. So how do you put together? I mean, how when you talk about getting your 530 people together, how do you manage to equate that ratio with old and new, as it were?
Well, we have the profile of the individuals and that, and a lot of people go back to the same place each year. So the sector marshals, the 12 sector marshals, have a number of deputies. So I run one of the sectors as well, and I have 5 deputies that help me run certain sections. So they know their people, and then they will actually allocate a role to each person when they're out there. So somebody will be on the radio, somebody will be on the flag, somebody will be doing if a bike does go down, somebody will go for the bike. So they lay down what they're going to be doing and everything, and that's based on their experience. They may not be experienced marshals, but they may be serving police officers that deal with traffic incidents. They may be military people that have dealt with things far worse, and they're very good at doing stuff, but we still have to control them if they're novices.
Yes, well, apart from going out with somebody, working beside somebody, the apprenticeship type system you're talking about there, what about training courses themselves? Do you have any?
Yes, we do. As I said, we have the training course, but as I said, we only prefer to put people on it after they've done a few sessions. At the moment, it's run in conjunction with St John Ambulance.
And what does that teach them?
Well, it teaches them how to use the radios, how to use the flags. It teaches them parts of their responsibilities and how they interact with the Road Race Act. It teaches them a certain amount of medical instruction, loading onto a stretcher, how to load a helicopter if the helicopter's needed. So that's all covered in the training courses, so they get an idea of it. And we're talking of putting some of that onto YouTube so that people can watch this sort of thing and they can learn it. But there's not necessary to have everyone knows. Not everybody's going to be on a flag. Not everybody's going to have a radio. So it depends on which people know what they're doing when they're out there.
Well, with St John's Ambulance, you mentioned it, but this is a lot more than a first aid course.
Absolutely, this is it. But they teach you certain basic things that you might have to do. And we have the HOG Rob Vine Fund orange boxes, which has got a lot of medical equipment in, and we're sort of taught to use what we know how to use, and all the rest of it is left for the paramedics and the doctors that are stationed around there, because MRMS makes road racing medical services now. They actually will allocate doctors and paramedics to certain places where there may be possible known bad black spots.
Risk factors.
Yeah.
When you say allocate them, they're with the Marshals, or
yes.
they're in the field behind?
No, they're with the Marshals. They're out there actually on the side of the road with us. They're in different registration, but they are actually out with the Marshals.
Now, if somebody takes one of these courses in the end, is there any qualifications, any certificate, anything to show they've done it?
Yes, yeah. We at the moment, as I said, we've actually got a combined certificate between the TTMA and the St John Ambulance, but our training is actually agreed with the ACU, so they know what the training course is. They know what we're training people how to do.
Well, if you take one of these courses and let's say you go over to Northern Ireland and there's racing on there and you want to maybe marshal over there, is it recognised as a qualification elsewhere than the Isle of Man?
I wouldn't know whether or not I mean, I think that if they've done the training here, we've had a lot of people from across doing the training, and I think that it's been generally accepted as quite a good training course. So I think that they would probably accept it, but whether or not, that'd be down to how they actually do it.
And you hold these courses off island as well?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do a few off island. We've got about 10 off island each year, and we've got about 10 or 12 on island.
Right. And the numbers? What? And the numbers that would turn up to them, would you say?
We get quite a lot. We can only, because of the St John, 12 students to one instructor, trainer, so maximum we can have is 24 people on a course. But we did one the other week and they were both full.
Now, before we just move off on the various qualifications, flag marshals, we came to them, which I see notes when I'm reading them referring to them as flaggies. Does that still apply?
No. There used to be a sort of there is a chain of command, if you like, from the clerk of the course for the sector marshal through the deputies, and the flag marshal used to be a very important part because there was no radios. There was telephones every so often, but the flag marshals themselves were sort of stood down, if you like, in about 2005, 2006, because then we started training every marshal to know how to use flags. So we might have everyone there that knows how to wave a flag, so we would just put them onto the road. And now there's a lot more places that have there are flags at nearly every marshalling point, whereas there used to be only flags at certain areas.
So what does the flag marshal, what do the flags do?
Well, there's quite a few flags. They go from green, meaning you can go. The yellows mean stationary and waved, mean different things to the riders. But they're all intended to give information to the rider.
Well, red, I presume, stops everything.
Red does stop everything. Yes, that stops everybody, but that can only be ordered by the clerk of the course. We can't put red flags out until we get a notification from the clerk.
What happens if there's an emergency? You haven't got time to ask them.
No, if we push the button on there and we say that this is bad, then they will call for a red flag. They tend to ask now, can you cope? Can the bike still get past under yellow flags? And if you say no, then they will call the race.
So yellow flag is a danger warning.
Yellow flag, yeah. Stationary yellow flag just means be aware of their no overtaking, things like that. And the waved yellow means be prepared to stop because there's something a little bit more dangerous around the next corner.
What does green mean?
Green means it's clear. It means that after a yellow it's clear. And then we have, as somebody said, the stripy flag, but that's officially called the lack of adhesion, but most people call it the oil flag.
Like slippery surfaces.
It is basically, yes. But we're also over on the island, we have a rain flag, which is meant for only just water on the course.
Right. All right. And what does blue mean?
Blue we don't use because in short circuits means that it's a back marker, but we don't have back markers. Well, we do have back markers, but there's no way that you'd be able to actually identify them and flag it. So we don't have blue over here. So
how many of these flag marshals, because I want to assume is that they're almost like the flags on the old ships, that they're a means of communication, not just at the time, but down the course as well, are they?
They are to a degree. It's mainly for the riders because the communication between marshals is now done on Tetra. So if there's an issue that we need there, we will do that. So they really are indicating to riders what the situation is, visibility, or if there's sun, low sun as they're heading out west, things like that. So there's it is really for the riders.
What does it mean when it says that the flag Martians, are appointed judges of fact?
Well, I don't know. Again, this is this legalese, isn't it? In the race regs, or not regs, in the Road Race Act. I mean, a marshal is no longer a police constable, but they do have powers granted to them under Road Race Act, and they do have the power of arrest. Although we tend to tell people rather they didn't use that. Very, very last resort. And I don't know of anyone that's been arrested.
Having arrested them, what do they do with them?
Well, that's the problem. That's part of it. But hopefully, if it was getting that serious, we'd have involved the police, and they would be on their way anyway. So, and then they're fully trained of what they would do. Well,
now, it's time for us to take a short commercial break, Robert. But let me just remind you, those of you listening today, that our studio guest is Robert Craine from the IOMTTMA. Now, unfortunately, he'll be leaving us at 1 to continue with the distribution of his registration packs to this year's intakes of Marshals, so he'll miss the man in line. So if you've any questions, you've now got about a quarter of an hour if you'd like to put any to him. And we've been taking a look at the work of the association and what's ahead for this year's TT Festival, which starts in 7 days. Now, let me remind you that Robert will be leaving at 1. We've only got about 10 minutes to go, but if you've got a quick text or email you'd like to send us, then please do so, 166177, or email to studio@manxradio.com. Well, you talk about the thrill of standing by the roadside, and the bikes are very close to the marshals at times, and all the things we've been talking about. But what's the insurance situation for a marshal?
The insurance, all marshals are insured by the ACU for injuries, and for from certain times they're insured on their way to marshalling and they're on their way home. And we always make a point of on the way straight home, not on the way home via a pub. But no, the insurance, all marshals are insured against damage. There
must be some regulations as well on whether you can drink on duty in this case.
Well, we do actually put that out. Of course, we have had people that have turned up with the alcohol on their breath, and we've had to get rid of them.
Send them home. Okay. But that's the risk factor there. But there was a marshal a few years ago, was it April Bolster, who was killed on the mountain road. What happens there? I mean, apart from an indemnity insurance for causing an accident, what about for instance, their families and so on? Is there a cover for them as well?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, that happened just as I was joining the board. The incident that was in Kirkmichael. I know there was an inquest into it about what had happened there, but I can't remember the exact outcome of that. Do
you deal with the travelling marshals?
We don't deal with them, but they are actually, they're part of the marshalling and that, and we have a close relationship with them. There's, Tony Duncan leads them. There's 7 of them, and everything, and they're positioned at certain places, and they always move. If we have an orange button on the radio for an emergency. And if we do declare an emergency, or even if we wanted something like a road inspection that we weren't sure about, they would move the TMs round.
Yeah. So they're chosen by whom? Where do they go?
They're all ex-riders, and they're all ex-racers on the island to the TT course, and I presume they're chosen by Tony. Because Tony is the number one.
I noticed last year they got new bikes and new tyres and new everything last year.
They get things, new helmets, new. It's every year there's something different.
Quite potent bikes too, by the
No, they are. Yeah, they have had some years where they've had some interesting bikes.
Right.
They're trying to run them in now.
Now, we'll have to quickly go through. I'm pleased to say we've got 1 or 2 texts and emails come through. Pete says they would get far more people to marshal if they didn't have to be there 4 hours more than they need to be because of watching countless laps of parades of cars full of dignitaries.
Well, there's obviously a monetary version behind that, but to be perfectly honest, the riders need a break in between the races. The races are timed to go off so that the rider that's in one race doesn't immediately get off the bike and be out again in 10 minutes. So while that period is down, it keeps the spectators happy if they can see something else happening on the course. And they go past, 6 cars will go past you in 5 seconds, so it's not like it's taking a massive amount of time.
I wonder if something can be done to get spectators safely from inside the course to the outside of the course after the roads open cars gone by. They are after the roads open car, as you're saying. There are crossing points, but it's not enough. I know it's not the marshal's problem, but it needs addressing before there are fatalities.
Well, again, once the roads are open, then the Marshals' responsibility is finished. They've got no powers. The powers that they're granted under the Road Race Act are only active for for the closed road period and for certain things of setting up. But once the actual road open car goes by, then that's it. It's a public road, and Marshals have no jurisdiction.
Yeah, race days are far too long for the Marshals. Minimum 10 hours first race day organisers should be told.
They have been told. I mean, it's been raised a number of times on them. They're trying to get as much in as they can to make it an interesting spectacle, and they are more aware now of the fact that it is inconveniencing some Marshals, because it can be a very long day, especially on the mountain.
Right. Hi, Roger and Robert. Enjoying this discussion. A couple of friends from across used to marshal but find the cost of travelling here prohibitive. Plus, one is self-employed, so if he comes for 2 weeks, it can cost him in excess of £1,000. Is there any way the Steam Packet could offer a discount?
Well, the Steam Packet are actually very good to us, I think. They do two schemes for us. One, they do a rebate if you come to both events. If you come to the TT and the Manx, then you can get up to £100 back off of your sailing trip, so that's one thing, and they also offer an advance booking system whereby last week the registration or bookings open to the public on the 21st, which I think is tomorrow, but the Marshals get advance booking so they can choose which sailings they want, but that's primarily so we can get people here for the beginning of the event and at the end of the event.
Right, but so the Steam Packet did used to at one time give some special prices for something. I think it was travelling marshals or something they did, didn't they? But that goes back quite a way now.
Yeah, maybe.
It's
I mean, they do, as I said, that's the only discount they do.
You keep referring to the Tetra radio system. It just in passing all the time we refer to not just radio but Tetra radio. That's the police, fire, ambulance, the emergency services throughout the island system, isn't it? Now, that is not quite the same as pushing a button on your walkie-talkie. I mean, do they have some training? Do they have radio procedure training?
Yes, they do. There's training courses as well, and again, that's something that's grown up since we had the radios back in 2004, I think was the first year. So, yeah, there are certain people that know how to use the radios. Again, there are professional people that use them. There are medics that are out there as Marshals, and they use them in their daily task at work. So yeah, we do teach them how to do it, and we teach them how to use it, and it is a case of calling things. It's a standard radio procedure, but also it has got an emergency button the same way the police have. So if they can't handle, if there's something going on, they have this orange button which brings up an alert in the control tower straight away, so they know there's an incident happened somewhere.
But it's about 250 sets out, I gather.
About
but so you've got a lot more Marshals than that.
Yes, because not everybody, and you might have, say, the 11th milestone, we've probably got 7, 8 Marshals, but you've only got one radio or 2 radios. So that's all you've got in those places. Not everybody has to have a radio. You just need a radio where it's suitable and needed. So
we connect to where? When you push the button, who answers?
Well, again, we've got 12 sectors, so when you push the button, everyone in that sector can hear you. So you can talk to anyone in the group, but then you can change channel if you want to talk to control. So we teach people how to change channel.
And it's effective enough, I gather, from this.
It's great. It really works. I mean, especially the improvements they put in a few years ago. I think last year there was a lot of work done by DHA, and now the coverage is a lot better than it was. And they've identified areas where there are problems, so they've been very helpful to us as well.
It looks as if there might be some more road closures this year. There's 1 or 2 provisions for some extras. Is that going to put much of a pressure on you?
Well, we've asked people to do put down whether or not available for the Sunday. The Sunday. If Saturday doesn't go ahead for any reason, then there's a possibility of running the practice on the Sunday, which is fine because it just goes in the afternoon. The one that may cause us a bit more problem is on the Friday, because it will be an afternoon session and then opening the roads to let all the people get home from work and then closing them again, and that will be another long day for Marshals, especially people that are on the mountain that may be up there from 12 o'clock till 9 o'clock. So I think that could be a bit of a problem. Then we got a very long race day.
The mountain must be about the worst place to be when there's bad weather, and you're stuck up there because there's no racing.
Well, if it's that bad weather, it's unlikely to be racing. And to be fair, over the last few years, Gary Thompson has made some very good early calls rather than leaving people out there till the last minute. So things like that have definitely improved over the last few years.
Now, talking about the mountain, I see in the news today that somebody's been out to one of your little homes on the mountain, the Blackcoat, and stripped the lead of the roof.
I didn't hear about that because I've been busy all morning in the Marshal's office, so I've not actually heard anything about that. But I'll find out from our course inspection people after I leave here.
That's some pointless people about it.
Well, it's a shame, isn't it? I didn't even know there was lead on there on the hut.
Yeah, maybe a bit damp for a while.
There isn't now.
Yeah, they wrote all of this. You've referred frequently during the course of the conversation to the ACU. What role do they play in all of this? I mean, what is your relationship with them?
They're the organisers. You have the promoters, which is the government, the DFE, and you have the organisers. So it's down to Gary to basically to organise what races go when and the schedule for it. So they're the actual people that do the organisation of the race, and we are kind of subcontracted, if you like, to the ACU. So they know what we follow the ACU codes. We do the work that the Marshals would do on short circuits.
So your relationship with them is what? Is it, in a sense, you often hear sometimes a little bit of fritant, a little bit of argument with the ACU from time to time. I haven't heard it lately, but we have heard it in the past.
There were issues in the past. There's no doubt about it. But the actual relationship, as I said, I think that the TTMA has got a much better relationship with quite a few people now from many government departments, including the ACU, and I think that we talk a lot more to each other, so they know what our problems are and they're aware of them, so they can now work around them. So I don't think we've had as many issues with the ACU as we had maybe 6-7 years ago.
Right. We go back to this as well. Others have said the days have got longer and longer, and most marshals I was with in the past have packed up because of this. We're going to run out soon, but the visiting marshals we rely on have had enough. I know a lot who already have. Rethink needed soon, says Neil. 49 years on the mountain.
I know, as we said, we have raised it. We've actually pointed this out to them and things. And I mean, it would be best if people did want to stop marshalling for that reason, then to let us know, because then we can give that evidence back to people rather than just walking away. So if they did let us know that was the reason they were stopping, then we can put that forward to the organisers and the promoters to actually decide on what they're going to do.
And has life been made any easier with all this change in legislation?
No. Not really.
What's that done?
It's there are some things in there that are not particularly helpful to us, but mostly it's not a lot of changes. There's not an awful lot of changes to what we actually do. It was just now we're no longer signed up by the police, so we're signed up. We're actually authorised by the ACU as organisers.
Right now, Robert, at this point, we're just about ready to end today's edition of Sunday Opinion. Now, we had with me the chairman of the Isle of Man TT Marshals Association, Robert Craine, and we've been talking about the work of the association and its volunteers to provide the essential marshalling around the TT course. I might add once more, making the point that without whom there would be no TT racing. Now, once more, we've attracted if we have actually attracted the interest of any of you who'd like to continue volunteering as a marshal, then how do they go about it, Robert?
Well, you can come and visit us behind the grandstand. We've got a website, IOMTTMA.com. We've got our phone number as well, 618191, which would be manned from tomorrow. So yeah, basically if they want to get in contact with that. We've also got a refresher day on Sunday the 27th starting at 9 o'clock.
Where's that?
That will be at St John headquarters in Glen Crutchley Road. So that people can come along there and say, can you show me how to use the radio? Can you show me what the flags are? And it's not only open to marshals, there's also a trip to the helicopters to see how they're loaded and a trip to the control tower. So if anybody's interested in that, let us know. And that's on, as I said, a week today.
A week today. At what time?
9 o'clock, from 9 o'clock in the morning to about 1 o'clock.
At St John's headquarters in Glen Crutchley Road.
Yeah.
That's very good. Well, Robert, thank you once more for giving up your Sunday, and I hope you now are successful in getting all your packs distributed and everything else that you have to do.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity, because it would be good if we could get more local people involved in it, and to know why some people won't do it, because that can help us decide on how we're going to go forward.
Well, there we are. Man and Nine will be opening its doors for business at 1:15. You can contact us then. It's been an interesting couple of weeks with the steam packet purchase and all the various other things, so maybe you'd like to talk about that. The programme today was produced by Catherine Nichol, and I'm Roger Watterson. Join us again after the news weather.